Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Josh from Firearms Training Central, and we are talking with instructor from California, Valenzuela. I'm just going to mess up your last name, but fortunately enough, he goes by Val, so it'll be really easy to address you for going forward. So Val, what I'm going to do is just kind of run through a couple of things with you, a little bit of your background, and we'll kind of go through some stuff that pertains to the firearms training industry and get your perspective. And feel free to just kind of expand on anything where you see necessary. But first is with the introduction about yourself. Why don't you just give us a little bit about your background and what you do now?
Cool. Well, Josh, thank you for having me, sir. I appreciate being here. Like I mentioned to you earlier, I believe in what you are doing for the industry and for other firearms instructors. So once again, thank you for that. So a little bit about me. I joined the military, the Army, back in 2000. So I've been playing with military grade weapons since the year 2000. I've been teaching on and off since I was in the military. I just have a love of weapons, and I really took to the educational aspect of that, the teaching portion. Being an educator. So I started my own company in 2014. So I've been teaching for my own company from 2014, but prior to that, about 5 years prior to that, I've been teaching professionally as a contractor, as an SME. So quite a few years under my belt teaching as a professional educator.
And you've got some military and medical background and everything, so you're coming from a lot of different facets of experience as well.
Yes. So, I built upon my experience and then expanded that experience. So the military, I was in the infantry, so I have that combat experience. I am a combat veteran, so I have that experience, on the tip of the spear with,
Right.
with rifles, military grade weaponry, things like that. But on the other side of that, my civilian side, I was a municipal firefighter, and I got into the medical side, as an EMT, and then I had military training as a combat lifesaver, and then I attended some advanced military courses, medical courses, and it brought about something that I really liked, and so I continued that on the public side.
Right.
So
Right.
I
That's
am
awesome.
currently a NAEMT affiliate faculty member. And I am a TCCC and TECC instructor. So I teach pre-hospital trauma, and I absolutely love it, especially with how things are going in this day and age with
Right.
active shooters and mass cals and things like that. This knowledge, this life-saving knowledge is it's so important to spread.
Sure, and that's one of the things that I plan to do myself is more training within the emergency response and medical training, because I think that statistically, especially like me living in a bit metropolitan area like Atlanta, that training could come in useful and be probably more applicable for things like witnessing or being close to a really bad car accident or something where someone's seriously injured, not just related to a gunshot or something, but just
Yes.
so
Yep.
those types of classes, I think are just how we learn to train and using firearms to preserve life. I think that those life preservation skills on the emergency response are
Absolutely. They're not just for the the trauma, it's for the gunshot wound. You can definitely learn this and apply it over a broad spectrum of incidences and injuries. Injuries
Right.
in the workplace, or the home. Me personally, I've been driving on the freeway and I've seen 4 vehicle accidents happen in front of me, and I've been able to stop at 4 different times and help people that were in vehicle accidents on the freeway. So like I said, it could just happen anywhere.
It could.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. And so moving from kind of like that experience, what's the motivating factor what drove you to want to become an instructor versus just working in a field where you're basically just working as emergency response or firefighting and then
right.
rescue and stuff like that.
So really it comes down to a passion, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I found something that I absolutely loved to do, and I loved it because it was a passion of mine. Like I said, it's not for everybody. Teaching is not for everybody.
Right. Right.
Teaching medical is definitely not for everybody. Teaching firearms, it takes a certain type of individual to get up in front of students and be able to have the patience and break it down for them and show them and guide them. But I found that I have that, and I love that. I love that aspect of being up there and helping, nurture and guide my fresh, basic students.
Right.
I love that I can give them the right information from the get-go, and I can see and watch them evolve from, a basic shooter to, an advanced shooter. And I just love when I see that light bulb go off and they get it,
Right.
and
Right.
I can see their groupings just start to tighten, and then, and then they're on it. So it's just, in its most simplest form, it's a passion.
Right.
I have a strong passion for teaching and educating.
Yeah, no, it seems like, people who, that seems to be a pretty common, characteristic or quality, is that is passion for sure. But I'm sure it has its challenges. It's
Yes,
I
there
hear
are
the
some,
good and the bad all over the place.
what we call in the military some leadership challenges.
Challenges.
There's some students that definitely
Yeah.
try my patience. And
I was gonna say it has to be.
you
a
get the
test
good
of
and the bad.
patience.
You
Yeah.
get the good and the bad for sure.
So, what would be, as from your perspective and your different experiences, both professionally and as an instructor, especially people who are just looking at taking their first class or their second or maybe first within 5 classes, what would be the most important or the primary idea that you would convey to each gun owner about self-defense and what that looks like, or what that should mean to you or mean to an individual as it relates to a gun owner?
As a gun owner, so obviously if we're using a weapon as a tool, okay, we need to have the education and training to go with that tool, to utilize that tool to the best of its ability,
Mm-hmm.
right? And how do we get that? Well, that's why we seek out professional instruction, and we go to courses and training, so that we can not only learn the basics, but then we can evolve with that, and we can get better with our tools, so that if ever the time comes for a self-defense application, we can implement that tool at its most effective, at its most effectiveness.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a big key factor, is both the mental processes that happen, as well as being able to understand muscle memory and just the mechanics of what to actually do when it's time to hopefully never, but if you're in that situation, time to actually use the business end of the tool, and think about everything leading up to that. I know a lot of stuff you see online is a lot of cowboy kind of cavalier style, and a lot of it's highlights, but it's kind of a common thing.
Yeah,
It's cool. And it's
there's
fun,
a trick,
but
or not a trick, but something that I always hit on to my students that that they have never even heard of before, which is I run them through the Jeff Cooper's color codes,
Mhm.
of your situation awareness, and then on top of that, I add on the physiological and psychological aspects of what happens to the human body. Um, and so some of them, and I mean some, I mean like the minority, are aware of some of those factors, but the majority of my students, before I bring it to their attention, are not aware of what's happening within their body, what's within their mind, and then their physical aspect of their body. So I find that when I talk to them and tell them about the physiological and psychological aspects, that there goes the light once again, and they're just like blown away, because their eyes are opened, and they get it, they can understand it. So I help, I find that it helps me to relate to them, in that aspect when I introduce those topics.
Right. So within what you've seen in the industry, and I'm sure you know a lot of instructors, and you've probably seen other classes or heard from other students, what would be the one thing you could change? Obviously there might be multiple things, but what's something in general that you would probably like to see change about the firearms training industry just as a whole, the totality of it today?
There's a few things.
Yeah.
Right off the top of my head, so there's three things right off the top of my head. One is people are, and by people I mean other training companies, other lead instructors. They are so territorial, and I don't like that. I'm in my own right. I'm my own alpha male, but when I'm in a room with other alpha males, like I don't need to be that top dog. I don't need to be that top person, that center of attention. And when it comes to these other training companies and instructors, they're very territorial.
Right.
And that's not me. I'm about the education. I'm about, let's get the knowledge out to the people, the masses as much as possible. And there's a lot of instructors out there who are not like that,
So is a way to protect their territory? Is it something where you see them kind of negatively put other schools or instructors in a negative light as to take away from their credibility so that they won't go to them and stay with them? Or is it more just
the way
they
that
don't want to collaborate
it's both.
with other people?
They'll talk to their students in a negative way about other, if they mention the other companies that are in the areas, it's definitely with a negative connotation. And then, like I said, my one-on-one with other instructors, definitely you can tell their body language changes, the way that they speak. It's very, borderline derogatory. And, like I said, they go on the defensive, and I'm not that way at all.
I've witnessed that firsthand myself, taking classes in different places around Atlanta. I have absolutely, I won't name names or anything, but I mean, I've witnessed that firsthand about the whole, you could go there, or this or that.
Yeah, see?
I'd be leery, or I'd be careful about this or that. It's kind of like, there's always a preface to it rather than just, hey, I would train with as many people as you have the opportunity and the resources to do. I think obviously the ones who are really not worth the time and money. I think there's that's one of the things that we're working on is that whole review system and the peer reviews and just really give people an opportunity to talk about their experiences, not necessarily in a way to like bash people. That's not really what we want to do, but to offer constructive criticism through our platform and also allow people to just tell people like, yes, I had such a great experience. They were really super patient with me. That'd be a very key characteristic that I would look for is patience, taking the time to make sure everyone understands everything. And those are the things that are important. And then of course, just the overall satisfaction and value out of, what they got. So, we're hoping to kind of help shape the way the industry maybe works. Nothing's going to happen overnight, but over time, to just kind of be a little bit more like you're, saying get the knowledge out. Because also from us, we're very pro Second Amendment. We're very pro, education and safe firearms use. And so by more people having access to the information and the resources, it makes more advocates. And those advocates spend money in the industry, and the industry lobbies for the advocate. It's kind of like this big circle.
Right. It's one good turn will help
exactly
help the next. So domino effect.
So I guess that kind of segues into another good question, which is if students are looking for kind of looking at instructors online, or they're vetting them and kind of trying to look at like, is this guy good? Is he not good? What are some good, maybe a couple of key points? I mean, is it is being a military or Leo a prerequisite to training, and maybe it is at different levels of training? Is it certain accolades, like certifications? What is it that you would suggest if another student asked you about instructors? Like what to look for? What are some good key KPIs, which is either going to be a red flag or this guy's probably
right. Oh, that's an excellent question. So I've actually partnered up with another training company up in I'm from Southern California, and he's in Central California.
Okay.
And he doesn't have a military background or a security contractor background like I do. And he is a phenomenal instructor. So I think if a student wishes to find an instructor that has a military or a law enforcement background, they are out there, and their aspects is definitely different than what you're going to get when dealing with an instructor who does not have a military or law enforcement background. So you will still get good information. However, the way that it's applied and the methodology and the ideology behind it will be vastly different.
Right, right. I can imagine that. I mean,
so I don't think there's really any cons there. It's just which path do you want to travel down?
Right.
And then from me to any student who would ask me that, I would say both. I would say find an instructor who has, who does have a military background or law enforcement background, and then go to someone's and attend someone's courses who doesn't.
Okay.
Because no matter what, you're gonna pick up, nuggets, golden nuggets wherever you go. Wherever you train, you're always gonna pick up some golden nuggets, and you take what works for you and you put it in your toolbox, and then what doesn't, you leave there.
Right.
But definitely, like I said, the application of what you learn is vastly different with each of those three different backgrounds, or background that they don't have.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, and I think there's a big, sometimes, like you said, those nuggets, sometimes those can be kind of left out if you get too narrow, in your scope as far as qualifications. But so at the same time, you also want to make sure that the person who's leading the instruction is giving you good advice, or teaching you techniques that are safe and are easy to put into practice under a high stress situation. Because I'm not military, I'm not law enforcement. I just have shot a lot. I've shot competitively, and I've taken a lot of classes, but that isn't necessarily it's like there's a lot of things I've never been shot at. So that could kind of I guess. For me, I guess it's kind of where it would be very difficult to relate in a high-stress situation. The highest stress situation I've ever been in is probably everyday normal stuff that people experience. So, that's kind of leads into kind of a couple of final questions. They're not really final. They're just kind of things that are more subjective because of what we all often are kind of firearms enthusiasts. So, what is your favorite pistol that you use? Not necessarily the one that you carry or duty, but what's just that you enjoy using?
Man, that's so easy. Definitely, that's my 6 Hour P226.
Yeah, that's a good gun.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That was my first baby right there, and I just absolutely fell in love with it as soon as I picked it up. I put it in my hands, and the trigger, the smoothness of that trigger press, and just I love it. So that's my personal favorite.
Personal favorite. So your personal favorite's a Glock. Okay, good. No.
All right. So I mean, okay. Let's talk real now. So
sure.
I also have shot competitively IDPA, and I was getting beat out with people who were using striker-fired weapons over hammer-fired weapons. Okay. I had my 6 Hour, and I was competing, and I was just getting beat out, and so I had to switch to Glock. I switched to a Glock, and my times improved drastically.
Right.
Because I started shooting a striker-fired weapon.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. That's what I used when I shot IDPA. It was a Glock. So
that's my EDC. A Glock 19. I mean, I love Glocks. They're so reliable. They're so you can conform them to any configuration that you like. So I love Glocks. Glocks are my second choice.
Nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
With a SIG P226.
SIGs and Glocks.
SIGs and Glocks. Yeah.
But if I had to pick one, just to be my favorite as my recreational shooter,
exactly,
it's going to be the SIG.
Gotcha.
But to do work, it's the Glock.
Gotcha. So with doing work, I guess in relation to the pistol, and looking at your bio, by the way, everyone can check you out at spentbrasstraining.com, and we'll have links all over and overlays. But I see the rifle there. It looks like an AR-15 with like a BCM buttstock on there, or something like that. So what about your rifle platform? Are you a AR or AK guy?
AR for sure.
Yeah.
I have a Yankee Hill machine. And I mean, I pulled it out of the box, and it was just the grouping out of the box was insane, and I fell in love with my Yankee Hill machine. So yeah, I love my rifle. It's been good to me. I've had no issues with it whatsoever. Definitely a phenomenal buy for me with my first rifle, my Yankee Hill machine.
Yeah. That's awesome. So is there anything else that you would like to talk about in relation to training, or about what Spent Brass Training Solutions is or does, or where people can, what do you have like regular scheduled classes and that kind of thing? You're mostly in Central California?
So I do my training schedule like 3 months at a time. So I'm just coming up to the end of my 3 months. So I'm about to put out, probably within this week, I'll put out for the next 3 months.
Okay.
But yeah, I hold courses about 2 times a month.
Okay.
I try to hold one type of basic course and one advanced course a month, and then I'll switch it up. So every other month it'll be a basic pistol or a handgun, and then it'll be an advanced handgun and then advanced rifle. So I try to switch it up that way. As far as the medical side, I hold an official NAEMT course every other month.
Okay.
And then the opposite months, every other month, then I hold my own courses that are not official.
Right.
The official courses are worth like continuing education units for the basic or advanced providers. So I just do as much teaching as I can. I love teaching. Right now, I've been kept very busy with teaching active shooter. I teach an active shooter awareness course, and I do a workplace violence. So those have been keeping me very busy. Like I have a 2-hour or 3-hour bleeding control course that's been very popular, in conjunction with my my full 2-day med courses. So I've been busy.
Sounds like it. Sounds like you got a lot going on, and I mean that's the crazy thing. I mean we had this interview pre-planned, and on the day of this interview was an active shooting, in Orlando. So it's just kind of like sometimes I don't know if things are just getting crazier, or it's just we have faster access to information and everything else. But regardless, it seems like these things happen, and they're not ever really going to stop. So the more training, not as a scare tactic, but just it's just the reality of our world. With the terrorist attacks not going on, and just the normal everyday stuff is staying up on training and being educated and just understanding about what to do in those situations.
You gotta be well versed. You gotta expand that training. It's no longer just one platform. It's everything's medical now these days. You have to have that medical element.
Exactly.
You might be that first responder on site. You might be at the right place at the right time. And if you're equipped with that knowledge, you could save someone's life. The life that you saved might be your own.
Right, absolutely.
I truly believe that.
Or a family member. I mean, it's just anything's possible. So if people are looking for training, and they're outside of as it relates to the emergency training, and they're outside of California, what types of searches and what kinds of things should they look for? Is there any certifications? It's kind of like we were talking about the firearms instructors. Is there anything particular people should look for?
Yes. So ideally, you would want someone who is certified at the national level. And the organization that I teach for is called the NAEMT.
Okay.
And if they're a legit instructor, they should be certified by that agency, and they should be able to teach the TCCC or TECC courses.
Okay.
TCCC stands for Tactical Combat Casualty Care, and TECC stands for Tactical Emergency Casualty Care. The only difference between the two is the TCCC is the military version, and the TECC is the civilian version of that.
Okay.
So the civilian version incorporates police and fire, and what's called like the rescue task force. So civilians out there definitely should look towards, if not a 1-day, the 2-day med course. Like I said, the TECC is the 2-day med course that incorporates aspects into the civilian side. So that'd be their best bet.
Awesome. Okay, that's very useful, because that's something that I myself want to look into, and we'll probably try to find something here around where I live. So, and I hadn't, we haven't really spent a lot of time focusing on the emergency training. It is something we have as a category through Firearms Training Central, and it's something we're going to expand upon, because we know that a lot of instructors kind of do both, and that's a really kind of huge, valuable, component to people's training, and awareness and everything else is a huge part of that. So we'll definitely be trying to cover a lot.
About a year ago, when I was on my last fire department, I was the one to introduce them and teach them how to even apply a tourniquet.
See, yeah, that's
And this was a year ago, you know?
wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's huge. I mean, and I have like some basic, over my lifetime, like medical training, but it's all like very basic, like from lifeguard training and simple stuff like Heimlich maneuver or whatever. But nothing that's like would be useful in a a situation where someone was shot or maimed, or where you have to
Right.
stop bleeding or slow it down or
I
whatever.
got you. I'm going to get you squared away. I'm going to get you up to date.
All right, sweet. Appreciate that. So yeah, man, I think that's pretty much covers it. I definitely really appreciate you taking the time and
man, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me. This was great.
All right, Val, thanks for your time. And if anyone has any questions, you can check out Val's website, which is spentbrasstraining.com. And we'll also have links to his website within the post, as well as the video and anywhere else. And Val, what if people want to follow you on social media? Are you on Instagram or Twitter?
Oh, yeah, please. I would be very, very humbled. So Instagram is Spent Brass Training. And then Facebook is Spent Brass Training Solutions.
Spent Brass Training Solutions. Cool. And we'll have those linked up within the post and everything as well. All right. Thanks for your time, Val. We appreciate it.
Cool.
And
appreciate it.
We'll be hoping to talk to you again soon. We'll probably check in.
We will be in
how
touch.
things are progressing for you.
Cool. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
No problem. Take care.